LinkedIn is spying on you. At least that's what a new lawsuit alleges, where several people have gotten together and put together a class action lawsuit against the company. How they're doing it and why they're doing it, that's what we're going to discuss today on Legitimate Cybersecurity. Welcome to Legitimate Cybersecurity. My name is Frank Downs. As always, I'm here with Dustin Brewer. And today, a new lawsuit has come out just this week. I feel like there's a new one every week. And this one is specifically a class action against LinkedIn. Dustin, there's a lot of lawsuits that we see here, and we see them a lot. Why do you think that this one is specific? Although maybe I should explain it for the audience first. What's happening here with this lawsuit specifically is that users are alleging that LinkedIn has been collecting information on browser extensions in their actual browsers when they visit LinkedIn. Now, we all know that tracking happens, cookies, advertising, and things like that. So we're not new to the idea of websites taking information, but I'll tell you what, Dustin, as someone who pays for the hellscape that is LinkedIn every month, my first reaction was the audacity, right? Because I'm already giving you actual money. Why are you still taking more of my identity and scraping
Mhm.
things? But it's interesting that this has made people so upset that they've put together a class action. What are your thoughts when you see this type of thing? And what do you think is kind of the first thing that comes to your mind as far as why is this happening now?
Well, judging by the number of cold calls I get on my personal phone number from people who have somehow purchased my information from LinkedIn, at least that's what they say on the phone. Maybe that's part of it. Maybe we're just done being called by people for things that we don't need or aren't even a part of. I get called for cloud security stuff all the like, hey, let's talk about your cloud security. I'm like, I don't control any of that in my organization. And then of course it's, well, can you tell me who does? And it's no, goodbye. Don't call this number ever again, please. It's
I don't
absolutely
check my messages anymore for that reason on
I
LinkedIn
know
because
it's absolute insanity. And luckily now we have, AI call screening that we can do, right? So both Apple and Android have those capabilities to, hey, can you tell me what you're calling about? And then, if you read it, it's like, I'm calling Dustin about LinkedIn stuff. Like, oh, nope, hang up. I'm not talking to that person, right? But interesting enough, like you mentioned, like, oh, there's another lawsuit. This is like the fifth lawsuit for LinkedIn specifically when it comes to taking data that they probably shouldn't be taking. I know this one's very specific, and we're going to get into that in a little bit. But the other thing here as well is, with the surgence of AI going out and being able to grab basically any information on the internet, and then also with data brokers constantly just scraping your data and trying to collect information on you. Um, and then, privacy laws that don't exist in certain countries, like the United States of
yeah,
America.
certainly not here.
Right. And so we, for Europe, even for Europe, I'm sure this is an issue, but maybe the companies are just willing to pay whatever fines there are. Although I think the fines for the EU are substantial. So, but if a company's making enough money off of it, then they don't care. It's a drop in the bucket for them. But going back to it, like I think that we do see this um, interesting. I don't want to say breakdown in the belief of democracy in the United States of America, but there is a very unstable state that's happening in the United States right now. Not only that, but the privacy of the data data privacy has kind of always been somewhat of a concern to most folks. And it's something we've been willing to give up a little bit if we get something in return, right? Like a great platform to share pictures and stories with loved ones, right? That's going away too. So now what are we really doing? We're giving all of our information to this site that is usually a hellscape of political and social opinions of people who we don't necessarily agree with and don't necessarily want to read. And only for them to then turn around and take our data and then to bother us by calling us, inundate us with useless information that doesn't matter to us and steal and invade our privacy really. And so I think that's a lot. So there's the social part, there's the lack of a true service part that's kind of starting to happen because LinkedIn, nobody's finding jobs on LinkedIn anymore. I mean, I'm sure that we'll get some comments. Oh, I found my last job on LinkedIn.
That's what's
Good
really
for you.
sad too. I know so many
Yeah.
people who are just languishing on LinkedIn, right? They're just sitting there waiting on LinkedIn. They've done everything right. They actually have careers. They have an impressive profile, but they can't seem to get a job. And that is LinkedIn is so frustrating, especially as you mentioned with the social angle. you still see the same kind of virtue signaling in the
Yes.
grossest way, but on LinkedIn, it's almost like they're proud of what they're saying, and it's almost manicured, and it's almost like a weird. I don't know if they're trying to suck up maybe to future employers to sound like
Right.
I need to grind every day. If you're only working one job, you don't know what you're doing. You need your side hustle and stuff like. I get contacted for franchise opportunities all the time on LinkedIn. I don't want to start a Wendy's. I do not want to start a Wendy's. I don't want to start a Burger King. I don't want to be a franchise owner right now. I am so busy with my day job. I would fail a Wendy's. I would also, side note, Wendy's is going through right now. They're struggling. They're closing a lot of chains. But my point here being, I'm not on LinkedIn for people to come to me and say, are you ready to take the next step in your financial future? Start a Wendy's.
Yeah.
Get out. I
Yeah.
don't want it. And additionally, like the problem I have with this is I'm paying for this and this is still happening. So your
Yes.
point there being correct too. And I think what some of our viewers and listeners know a little bit about, but we could probably tell them a bit more, is we already understand that when we interact with websites, certain information is taken. When most people visit a website, they think that it can see things that they do on that site, but people don't always know the other things that it can pull about you. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, and explain how these sites use cookies and use information to find out, hey, where you been, what you doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So any data that is stored within your browser is reachable by another web application, right? Depending on, sometimes it'll pop up and say, "Do you want to share your location? Do you want to allow us to? Do you want to allow this website to pop up messages?" Little things like that that you might not think about. But on the back end, it can also check and see, to your point, Frank, history. So where you've been, what sites you frequent. And so it's collecting data like that about you as well. So it's collecting your habits, almost building what some might call, I was going to say what we might have called back in the day, but what some might call a pattern of life on somebody. Once again, building out this huge database of all of your information. And again, like you said, it's something that we've kind of gotten used to. At least I feel like our generation's a little more used to it than the two ahead of us that are still kicking around, three ahead of us really that are still kicking around. But two specifically that are the baby boomers and the Gen Xers that are still prolifically online. And again, I feel like it's been normalized. It's like hyper
Yes.
normalization that's happening with privacy. And so again, even where you've been physically sometimes, right? So grabbing your GPS coordinates. All of our phones have GPS on them. All of our laptops, depending on what operating system you're using, if you've enabled location settings, it can tell where you are based off of your IP address. Sometimes GPS, depending on what kind of laptop you have, but most likely IP address. But it can still get a pretty good idea of where you're at in the world, and that's really scary. And trying to think of what else is on there. Frank, what did I miss?
No, you actually covered a lot of it really well
Yeah.
because it can build, one would argue, a form of social credit or a social profile because they'll say it's not too hard, everyone, to take people with certain credit scores and build profiles of them based on their web habits. And so they don't have to know, and I'm just using a credit score in this example, what your credit score is. They can say, oh, this person visits this site, this site, this site. They usually have this kind of income, credit, ethnicity, XYZ. And all of a sudden, you didn't tell these companies this information, but they know it about you anyway. I think it's really interesting how LinkedIn has been performing this specific to browsers because it's been much more active than the traditional one. What they're doing is they're installing certain files that browser extensions react to. So, for example, say you have a browser extension that automatically fills in your username and password for certain things, certain extensions. The websites are recognized when you open up that website and something is opened up and it autofills. They only have to put something that autofills for that website on LinkedIn and they don't even have to show it to you. It can be they can bury it in the code so it doesn't even present itself to you visibly. And then they put many different files that solicit many different responses from browsers,
Mhm.
and they're building these profiles as a result, knowing what extensions you have. And they're using that to go, okay, maybe you have let's say ADP extension or something like that. Oh, they fill out a time card. Oh, They do that. Okay, so this is a person who does, wage has to keep track of their time, their hours. So they're clearly probably not the CEO, right? There's someone that works. Anyway, I find it a bit frustrating because this is why people should be concerned about it. Um, you can only your point that it is pay to play at this point. We used to pay with our identity. Now we have to pay with our money and our identity just to have everything stolen from us.
right?
It's it's really interesting.
It's like Netflix. It's like the streaming services now. So now we have to pay just to get access to it, and then we have to pay to get the ads removed. And they're probably still collecting our data and still selling our data. I haven't looked. I haven't looked at the terms and conditions in a really long time. And then they raise the price on us. It's amazing. It's amazing what these companies have been able to do. And this goes right back to like lack of regulation. Again, I'm not saying you have to regulate everything, and I'm not saying you have to do it hard. And we had a great conversation with, oh, who did we just have a conversation with that we were talking about regulations where, they're basically like, I'm for regulations, but it's got to be smart, right? It can't be like, we're going to regulate this thing. And then you go in there and it doesn't help at all. It just costs money for like it's a money grab for lobbyists basically who lobby for specific industries. Um, but being smart about it and saying like let's stop this to at least an extent that we can all agree on that the companies can still make money because they still need to make money, and I'm all for that. But also not all for you making money and then finding new revenue streams with my data, or revenue streams with my subscription fee now, and then raising the price of that subscription fee. It's getting out of control, and obviously this is a heated conversation. I'm pretty sure it's one of those things that all of us can agree on, though. I don't think
You'd
actually
be
I would
surprised.
love
There's a
to
lot of
hear
people who don't care. There's
I
a
would
lot
love
of
to hear
people
the
who,
comments from those people. I want to know
yeah.
why you don't care. I want to know why you don't care. Tell me why you don't care whether a company takes your money and takes your personal data and sells it. Tell me why you don't care about that. Please. I want to hear a good argument too. I don't be like, oh, I don't know, like, oh, I don't care. I don't have anything to hide. It's not about having anything to hide. It's not what this is about. It's about you're already paying. What else? Why do they need to find other revenue streams? What's going on here? I know everybody's got to grow. We got to keep growing, and that's a thing, and that's a thing with capitalism, right? But in the comments below, if you're watching this on YouTube, Instagram, wherever you're watching this, if you're watching this on LinkedIn, please in the comments below, I want to know why you don't care about a company taking your information.
And
Sorry,
to
David.
answer your question, it's no, your upsettedness is appropriate. Walter Haydock is who we talked to, and he gave us when he was talking about the difficulty in creating legislation, basically, and that is very true. Creating legislation that is meaningful and is helpful is going to be something that's going to take forever, and maybe it hasn't even happened, right? Furthermore, I think your point is more bolstered when you consider the fact you're not getting what you pay for. LinkedIn is supposed to help deliver jobs. And when you're paying for something and when you're using something and it's not even providing you what you need, but you still feel an obligation to use it because now LinkedIn, I believe, is table stakes. If you're applying for any job anywhere, for by and large, they're going to expect you to have a LinkedIn profile,
Yes.
right?
Yeah,
And so
totally.
you kind of can't operate successfully without having one. I'm sure there's exceptions to every rule and so forth, but it also brings to your point where you're not even getting what you're paying for. Same thing recently happened with our social security information, right? We, at least our generation, are going to get a much more deprecated version of social security. We're paying into it. We're not going to get what we pay for. And on top of it, they took our data when the Doge team came in. They took all the social security information and they don't even know where it all went. Like they made copies and it is not secure right now. Now, let's be perfectly blunt. If you had a credit score in 2017, that information was gone already. Okay. A lot of the information was gone in the Equifax hack. There should be an expectation that if you contribute to something, if you pay for something, that there's going to be an effort to at least respect that information and keep it safe. LinkedIn's not doing it. Social Security's not doing it. And a lot of other organizations are not doing it. It's really hard right now to find an organization that we use, a company that you might use that actually legitimately cares about privacy. Apple used to be a really good example of this. And to their credit, they still are. But now you've got this hack that happened this week that attackers are able to make Apple's onboard AI that they have for Siri leak information so they can pull your
Right.
health information. They can pull all this other information that you might have put in there. Not secure enough, right? So I think you're right in that version. I have a couple ideas, but I want to know what you think first on what people can do in order to engage with something like LinkedIn, or for that matter, any website to keep their information secure, because there are ways to do it, even for Facebook. But I want to know your suggestions and then I'll provide mine.
Yeah. So one of the big things with the extension, the current lawsuit, the newest lawsuit is the browser extension, right? And we already know that like private browsers already block that. So if you're using Brave, if you're using incognito mode, if you're using any one of your browsers in private browsing with Edge, then I think from what I've read, it sounds like that stops this particular attack. And honestly, it stops from it stops it stops most of those types of things, right? So the idea here is that it's throwing you into a sandbox, if you will, a sandbox environment, meaning that it can't really grab any other data on your browser. And honestly, that's kind of how Chrome was originally built too. It was kind of built to have that sandboxing tabs idea in there, which is why, and Microsoft boasts this all the time, Chrome is such a memory and resource hog because it's basically starting up a little mini virtual machine every time you're opening up a new tab. That's a little reductive, and I understand we might get some comments about that. But and so the idea here is to make sure that you're using those things. We've talked about this ad nauseum too, where it's like how do we increase our privacy online? Private DNS, that's another part. That's another piece of the puzzle we've talked about. Browser extensions that actually ad blocking capabilities, things like pie holes and all the ways that they do track us with like DNS records and cookies. Having those blockers and ad blockers on there helps. Now, make sure that when you find it, let's say you're going to use an ad blocker and you're like, oh, I found this great new ad blocker. Um, Making sure that that ad blocker is not just taking your data and then sell like, yeah, it's blocking the ad blockers for the other thing, or it's blocking the ads from the other sites, but not taking your data and then being like, but we're going to sell it because we're giving it to you for free. So we're going to sell your data instead. There you can go even deeper to have the internet scrubbed with companies, organizations that
I
will
think Cloaked
go
is one
in.
of them, for example.
What is it?
That'll
Rope?
a Cloaked, I think, is one of them.
Cloaked. Cloaked. I used one, and I'll have to look it up while on our next break here. But um, there's one that I use that you basically give
Delete
them power
Me
of
is
attorney
another
to
one
to,
too.
to submit to
Yeah.
submit data removal on your behalf. To remove your data from the best known data brokers. The problem is that if that data broker has already sold your information and you ask them to remove it, great, it's removed from that data broker now. But who they sell that information to, they might still have your data floating around somewhere. So it's this very ephemeral, very constantly moving dynamic data set on you that is floating around the internet. Frank, what did I miss there?
I was thinking about this earlier and I want to know your thoughts on this one. Don't download apps. Only use, get with me. Here's an idea. If you want to keep your information secure, one of the best ways they can steal it is by using the applications that are made by the companies that want your information, such as Facebook, Instagram, etc. What
Hmm.
they don't have control over, and the irony is clear for me here, is the whole website experience, the whole internet, right? So I'm telling you about a web browser while we're talking about how web browsers are compromised. But if you're on your phone, if you're using your phone and we are fans of not the stock browser. For example, I like to use Brave
Hmm.
because you can control all the scripts, all the cookies, all the stuff that's actually used to follow you online. And instead of actually using the app, you go to the website and you can do web apps and you can even make them little icons on your screen so it looks just like the app. And you use a browser like Brave, you have a lot more control over what can be read by that company and what can't be read by that company, and even to the ads that they show you. Now, is your experience going to be the same or as fluid as when you were using the application? No. But if this is something that really concerns you and you want to control your information a bit more, you have the capability to do that. What do you think? You think that works? I mean, then the VPN and all that stuff. I think yes. Nord is great.
And the
I
VPN,
love
yeah,
I love pie holes. Pie holes are awesome.
yeah,
You can set up things, but we're getting a bit more technical in those instances for everyday folks to try and secure themselves. It's it's
yeah.
the best option I can think of for people who might just want to be a bit more secure.
That I mean, it's a great suggestion. I've never really thought about it like that, and mostly because some of these apps are just fancy wrappers for the SaaS application, right? So like In other words, the app that you download on your phone is basically just a fancy web browser that displays the web app already in your phone. Now, but to your point, Frank, that still gives them extra permissions. They can still say, "Let me see your location. Let me have access to your videos and your pictures and your photos. Let me have access to gyroscopic information that your phone is doing." Right. So
The
I know it's
gyroscopic, the barometer that
the
is in your phone.
so
And
like how much data do they need on us, right? But anyway, so yeah, I think that's a good point. I don't know. I'd have to look at some data on that and see. I'm sure someone's tested this to see like, hey, what's has anybody tested this to see if there's less information they can get off of it.
and help me with this, contradiction in my brain. All right, because I am saying you should be secure. And I want to know what it is about LinkedIn that's making me so upset, because Waze is a great example. I provide Waze a bunch of information so that they can aggregate it and identify where traffic is so that everyone can know where traffic is and we can plan our routes appropriately. I can even report like when I see a cop, things like that, so people know. I'm fine with that. And I think the difference here is, as I've been thinking about, is Waze is pretty upfront. Like literally, there was, I think their motto was better driving together. You knew that this was a social
Yes.
thing that you were contributing to in order to create a better experience. LinkedIn is hiding this, right? They're not, and their argument, I can see the argument now. Well, what we were doing wasn't illegal. It was in the terms. It's like, okay, but there's a reason you hid it because you knew it's not popular. And your other point where it's going to be cheaper for them to keep this tied up in courts and keep fighting it in court, right? And then if they do get a fine, like these EU fines, it's a smack on the wrist. It's the table stakes for them. It's the price for playing, right? Because the value of the information is so great and has made them so wealthy that
I
here you go.
think yeah, no, I think you're touching on a really important social aspect that's kind of again happening, I think, all around the world, but I can only really speak for the United States because that's where I live. And that's that ethics used to be a thing for companies and it's not anymore. They just don't care. It's no longer in our corporate zeitgeist
You're
to
right.
talk about ethics. Only to pay lip service, and maybe that's all it ever was there for. However, people did used to get fired for breaking ethical laws. Now I don't feel like it happens that often. And also, to your point, it's not illegal, sure, but is it ethical? Is it ethical to do what you're doing right now?
Well, we live in a time where leaders are using Polymarket to make money when they go up and make an announcement on certain things. So
That, but that's the thing is, it's like that resets the bar, right? So it's like, okay, well, all we did was take your data. This person bet on someone dying. You know what I mean? It's like,
right.
okay, like that's not that
Which
doesn't
apparently
make it
that
any
was where they
better.
had to draw the line because so many people were trying to bet on people being killed that what is it, Kaishi and Polymarket are like, listen, we're glad you won the bet. It's kind of messed up you won the
I
bet
think
that
the
way.
White House released something on it that was like to staffers, like stop insider trading, stop placing these weird bets.
Really?
I think I
This
read that
White
this
House?
morning. I think I read that this morning. I'll have to
I guess
hey,
they all made their money already, so now they need to stop.
if I'm wrong, tell me in the comments below.
They certainly
um,
isn't going to stop Congress, that's for sure.
Right. And look, like this isn't gonna like well, other than maybe getting us kicked off of LinkedIn for talking so poorly about their ethics and their business practices. But I mean, we're
You,
just
you know
really
what's
saying
funny?
what
I
happened.
found out about this on a LinkedIn article.
Yeah. So I guess they're not what's the word? They're not silencing us yet. They're not
There's no money in it. It's just
yeah.
engagement is the currency of the time, which turns into money. So
Yeah. So we can bash it all we want. They're never gonna take us up. I don't know. But look, to your point, like ethics have at best been a gray area for organizations. Now it's not. It's just not even, I think, a consideration. If it's not regulated, then who cares? Go and make as much money as you possibly can with as many revenue streams as you can. And in the meantime, whatever, if no one's going to hold you accountable. But even the accountability stuff, like, oh, we're going to hold you accountable by charging you money. How much is the fee? Oh, it's one thousandth of what we make by doing the illegal practice. We're just going to continue doing the illegal practice and keep paying your fine.
you just reminded me. Do you remember? And this was the big one. I want to say it was 2020. Do you remember when Showtime got in trouble? Because, and I think it was either their browser extension or it was they were able to install something when you went to and Showtime, the television network. The not HBO, the not like probably like the third tier of we show you movies like network. They were installing code on people's browsers so that when they were at Showtime and even when they weren't at Showtime, it would mine Bitcoin. It would mine Bitcoin for Showtime. Yes.
Like
So
crypto
you were mining
jacking,
Bitcoin for
yeah.
Showtime by visiting Showtime and definitely using more power on your computer.
Yeah.
You're giving them free power, free compute to mine
Yes,
Bitcoin for like the third best movie channel. That's messed up. All
that
right.
is. I don't remember that one. That's interesting. I do remember there was a guy who worked in an IT department in a university, I think, and he went and he installed like it was like a screensaver crypto mining thing. And he just like, and he got in trouble for it. And I was kind of like, I remember thinking at the time, like, so like if it's a screensaver and no one's using it, it's like computing power. But I guess it's energy drain
But if your
and
power bill goes up,
you're stealing, yeah, you're stealing resources
I
from the
mean, with all the data
university.
centers, everyone's power bill is going up now. Like you pull that
Yeah,
now, it's going to be hell to pay on
yeah.
that one.
But I do I do remember that, but I don't remember the Showtime, but I believe it. I mean, it's probably one of those things where they were like, "Well, it's not illegal."
Just because
Right?
something isn't illegal doesn't mean you should do it. I'm going to
Uh,
throw that one out there.
right. Hey, good for you, Frank. Good for you having ethics. Good
And
lord.
just because you're, oh, this is going to get me in trouble. Just because your religion doesn't say anything about it doesn't mean it's bad either, or doesn't mean you should or shouldn't do it either. You should be able to figure out what is ethically right to do outside of the law and outside of your dogmatic beliefs.
Also, on that note, if you think that your religion doesn't say that there's something wrong with it, you might want to go and read your religious text a little bit more carefully because it probably does. It probably says that those things aren't good to do. It
There's at
probably
least
says
10
don't
things I
steal.
can think of that are frowned upon, at least in my, what is it? I think they're called the commandments.
Right. Like, read it just a little bit more carefully and think about it in the context of what you're about to do
Yeah. Yeah.
if you're religious. Anyway, sorry. Yeah, we're telling people we are not
Wow.
religious leaders. We
Yeah.
are not.
No. I'm not a religious leader. I'm not even a religious scholar.
No.
Um, I'm barely a good religion person. So I'll tell you that much. Anyway,
Okay.
final thoughts here, Dustin. Do you think this is going to get better? Do you think the outcome of this lawsuit will do anything other than enrich the lawyers and give 30 cents to everybody who participated?
No.
Yeah.
Things are not going to get better until true, well written regulation is there. Well written, well supported. And that's not happening right now. Not it's probably not going to happen at least for another 2.5 years, 3 years. Uh, and then even then, who
Very
knows what's
interesting
gonna happen?
selection. But
Yeah.
please continue.
Well, no, I mean, and to be fair, it hasn't happened for the last 250 years.
Correct.
Here we are. Until it's taken seriously, until we have some real change, this isn't gonna I don't think the needle's not gonna move on this. What do you think?
I think you made a really good point there, especially when you take into consideration the country was founded on by a bunch of wealthy businessmen who just didn't want to pay the most basic tax. So when you consider that in contextualization, yeah, I agree with you. There's just
So
going to be another
everybody
way to
take
do the same thing.
so everybody go and take your phones and your computers and throw them into the Boston Harbor.
There we go. We'll do the Boston phone party.
Lord.
Anyway, thanks everyone for listening. Thanks for joining. Thanks for watching. If we haven't made you incredibly furious with us and our terrible takes, then we'll see you next week. But until then, Dustin, take us out. Oh,
Keep on
and
cyber.
Chase sent us, one of our great viewers sent us several different ways to say goodbye. So we might even pull a few next week. But thank you to everyone who writes us, and we like all your suggestions. Anyway, as you were saying, Dustin,
Keep on cybering.
keep on cybering.